Hello, I'm Jason Avanzini, and I want to share something with you today from Scripture. In 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 24, David says something that is key that I think we can draw something from for our lives today. In that verse it says, David says, "I will not offer the Lord that which cost me nothing." Now let me tell you a little bit of the context so you can appreciate the content. David is in a season of rebellion. The Lord told him not to take a census of the people, but he ends up doing it anyways. And because he's in rebellion, there has to be some kind of punishment for this. The punishment that ends up coming is a plague upon the people of Israel. There's an angel that is sweeping across the land of Israel, bringing plague and destruction. I think 70,000 people ended up perishing from it. But we see something interesting, because as soon as the angel that is bringing this plague reaches the border of Jerusalem, God says, "That's enough." And he calls a stop to what's going on. And then God speaks to David and he says, "Go to that same place where the plague stopped and build an altar for me." So David goes to that place, and it's actually the threshing floor owned by a man named Anurah. And he says, "Anurah, I want to buy your property." And Anurah says, "You can just have it." And then we get to verse 24 where David says, "I will not give the Lord that which costs me nothing." When I look at this, I look at our lives and I look at, are we giving our lives in such a way that is sacrificial, or are we simply just giving God what's left over? Are you giving God your first fruits, or are you giving God your leftovers? Are you giving God sacrificially, or are you giving to God selfishly? See, if what you're giving to God is not precious to you, it's not going to be precious to God. So I think we need to do better in a couple areas. And one way certainly we can give better is in the sacrifice that we bring with our time. The time that we give to God. Time is the most valuable thing that you have. It's your most precious commodity. Literally, the most precious thing in your life is not your car, it's not your house, it's not even your friends and family. It's time. Simply because you can't get any more time. You only have a certain amount. When you're young, you think, oh, life is forever. But as you get older and your body starts to ache, or as you lose days where you're laying in bed feeling sick, or even as your life progresses and people begin to pass away, you see that life is actually very fragile. Your time is limited. So what's important to think about here is, are you spending enough time with God? You need to look at, whenever David says in Psalms, "This is the day that the Lord has made, I will rejoice and be glad in it." This is not just a verse to make you shout. It's a verse that you need to appreciate waking up in the morning. It's a verse that says, I had nothing to do with making the sun rise or with making my eyes open, but time is a gift from God. And not only is time a gift from God, time is a number one area that the enemy tries to attack. And here's how he attacks you with it. Busyness. We all are too busy. We're on our phones all the time. We're on social media all the time. And the time we spend with God begins to get smaller and smaller. And whereas we used to spend an hour with God, now we only spend a half an hour with God. Now we're spending 10 minutes. Now we're reading a verse on the way to work and just having one verse with God. Our time, it has to be the biggest part of sacrifice that we give to God. It's literally the most precious possession you have. I want to encourage you to give more of yourself to God. In the original situation that God had with man, which would have been in the garden with Adam, he had a full day, the Sabbath. This was God's day of rest, and it's a model for us that we need to have a full day of rest with God. The most precious thing you can give to God is your time. I want to encourage you to give more and more of your time to God, because this is an area that if it's not costing sacrifice, if it's not precious to you, then it's not precious to God. Let's give God more of our time. Spend more time in His Word. spend more time in His presence, spend more time in prayer. Thank you.